Why choose surrogacy over adoption? What's up? My name is Corlandos Scott, and I'm an assisted reproductive technologies attorney in Los Angeles, which simply means that my practice revolves around stuff like surrogacy, helping people grow their family with the help or assistance of technology. So in today's video, we're going to cover surrogacy versus adoption, some of the pros and cons, and we'll talk about the costs of each. Question becomes, which one is right for you? Let's talk about some of the main differences. The ultimate main difference between surrogacy and adoption is the genetic connection. Surrogacy still provides the intended parents the opportunity to have a genetic connection, or as some people say, remain the biological parents of the child, even if a surrogate or gestational carrier is used to carry the baby to term. Now, this is made possible if either or if both of the parents contribute their genetic materials, sperm and egg, in the creation of the embryos. So the wife's egg or the husband's sperm. And the same rules apply for even same-sex marriages or partnerships. Either or both can also contribute. And adoption simply doesn't allow that, at least not in the conventional sense that we're talking about. Adoption involves bringing a child who is not biologically related to you into your life through the parenthood connection, so that you're legally the parent of a child that is already born that you did not give birth to. So let's talk about some of the surrogacy and adoption pros and cons. We'll start with surrogacy. So as we said, with surrogacy, the child may be biologically or genetically related to the intended parents, and that makes, of course, a stronger case for the legal status of the intended parents being the actual recognized parents of the child. Also, with surrogacy, intended parents have, or they should have, mark that, they should have a legally binding contract between themselves and the surrogate. Also with surrogacy, the surrogate, with that contract in place and with the laws in your favor, cannot change her mind and keep the baby after birth. I know there's probably a Lifetime movie of the week or some tabloid article that you've read, but if you're doing it the right way, that surrogate can't change her mind. And honestly, I've never represented a surrogate who wanted to change her mind. When you do it the right way, your surrogate is screened, everything is discussed up front. That shouldn't be one of your worries. Also with surrogacy, in many locations, the hopeful parent or intended parents, as we call them, have the ability to become parents legally, meaning that there's a court order with their name as parent of the child in place even before the child is born. We call that a pre-birth order. So there's a piece of paper that says you're the parent of this baby that hasn't even come out yet. That's a definite benefit for surrogacy. Another one of the pros for surrogacy is the shorter waiting period to become a parent. Now, there's lots of red tape sometimes involved in adoption processes, especially international adoption processes. And even though there is a lengthy process associated with surrogacy, sometimes it's even quicker to have a surrogacy journey than there is to wait for years on a wait list to be able to adopt. And then one of my last pros in the mark of surrogacy is that both the intended parents and the surrogate should undergo a thorough medical screening before they can be matched and set along their way for a surrogacy journey. Now, why is that such a pro? Because the more medical screenings and preventative screenings we can do, the more control we have over the health of the pregnancy and the potential limiting of the risks that are associated with pregnancy. Now, this is a video about how is surrogacy better than adoption. So when I turn to the adoption topic, we're going to be talking about cons. So let's talk about it. One of the cons that exists with adoption that doesn't necessarily exist with surrogacy is that the adoptive parents may know very little about the child's medical history. Also, it's possible that adoptive parents don't know about the prenatal condition of the child or what type of environment the child was gestated in, if you'd like to say that. Also with adoption, you can't get any predetermined legally binding adoption contracts that definitively say who the parents will be. Now, yes, there are legal processes for adoption, but it's definitely not the same as surrogacy. Also, one of the cons for adoption is the birth mother can, in a lot of instances, change her mind and keep the baby after birth. Another con is adopting parents become the legal parents of the child several months after the child is placed with them. So with that concept, I've often heard of adoptive parents feeling like they're sort of in a place of limbo, where the baby's with them, but they're never able to really solidify their connection because they're always afraid in the back of their mind that there could be the rug pulled from under them and they have to return the baby, so to speak, or they may be obligated to give custody of the baby back to the mother. Also, with adoption, there are potentially longer waiting periods. There are parents who may wait several months to several years to move off of waiting lists and into the queue to actually adopt. And one of the last cons in the column of adoption is really only the birth mother goes through, we can't even call them medical screenings, but gets medical attention, which is also less thorough and less invasive than surrogacy. So unless you can get definitive medical records or chase down the father of the adoptive child, then you may not ever know about the medical history on the paternal side of that child's genetic connection. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe and like the video and share it with somebody. Go ahead, I'll give you 2 seconds. 1, 2, okay, I'll give you 3, go ahead. All right, let's talk about those costs. Now, when we're talking about the costs, one of the cons of surrogacy is definitely the costs. Surrogacy is way more expensive than adoption, and the cost for surrogacy can reach above an average of $100,000 to finish, initiate, and go through the entire process. Whereas there are some times where you can go through the entire adoption process with as little as $5,000. Of course, it varies. It can go all the way up to $15,000 or $30,000 or $45,000 or $50,000. But on the whole, it's typically less expensive to go through the adoption process than it is to go through the surrogacy process. And costs vary from state to state, both with surrogacy and adoption, and especially when you talk about international adoption. But it's safe to say, if cost is your only consideration, then adoption is probably a better option for you. But if you're looking for information on how to do it through surrogacy, I'm your guy, and I have something for you. I call it my Surrogacy Secrets Training, and it's where I take you through case studies of former clients of mine, and I talk about how to engage in surrogacy in a way that keeps you safe and keeps you from losing sleep, time, or money. So if you want that, make sure you click the link below and get my Surrogacy Secrets Training right over to your inbox for free. And I'll see you in the next episode.